Imagine you're standing in a world before time as we know it, where the air is thick with potential, and the boundaries between nothingness and creation are just starting to blur. There's no earth underfoot, no stars above, just a deep, quiet void waiting for something to stir. Celtic mythology, especially the Irish branch, is full of stories about how the universe began. But here's the thing, they didn't write any of it down, not at first anyway. For the ancient Celts, these stories lived in the voices of their druids, passed down through generations via their oral traditions. It wasn't until much later, when Christian monks started recording these tales, that they became words on a page. But with that shift came changes, reinterpretations, and additions that reflected the monks' own beliefs. What we have today is a mix, echoes of ancient pagan myths alongside layers of Christian influence. That's the challenge and the beauty of exploring these stories, digging through the layers to find the older voices underneath. For this story, I'm sticking as close as I can to those ancient ideas, while eliminating the early Christian influences. This version of events focuses on Irish tradition, which is often considered the most intact piece of Celtic mythology. It's where we find stories of gods like Danu and Bile, the forces that brought the world to life, and the Tuatha Dé Danann, a godlike race of brilliant creators and warriors. It's a story about beginnings, the forming of the land, the rise of divine beings, and their journey to a place that would become both their home and their legacy. Even within this branch of Celtic myths, there are still many different creation stories, so if this differs from the story that you know, just sit back and enjoy it. If you're ready, let's step into that ancient void together, where the waters start to ripple and the light begins to shine. It's a story of creation, one that echoes the voices of the ancient Celtic people. In the beginning, there was nothing. No land, no sky, not even a whisper of life. Just a void so vast and empty that even time itself didn't yet exist. But from this stillness, two forces emerged, drawn to each other as if they'd always been meant to meet. These were Danu, the flowing mother, and Bile, the fiery father. Danu was the first to stir, her presence soft but immense. She wasn't a force of chaos, but one of gentle persistence, like the way rivers carve canyons over millennia. She was the essence of life itself, carrying within her the promise of growth and fertility. Her form reflected this, radiant and serene, with hair that rippled like streams under sunlight, and skin that seemed to glow with the vitality of the earth. Her voice wasn't loud, but it lingered, resonating with the same quiet power as waves lapping against the shore. Danu didn't create through force, but through nourishment, shaping what was needed to bring balance and life into the void. Opposite her was Bile, who entered the silence with an energy that filled the empty space. He wasn't wild or destructive. He was steady, purposeful, like the controlled burn of a fire that clears the way for new growth. His presence was tall and commanding. His hair and beard glowed like embers, his eyes flicked with the intensity of a star. Bile was the spark, the energy needed to set things into motion. While Danu nurtured, he transformed, ensuring that the cycles of life and death would turn as they should. Together, they weren't rulers of the void. They were partners in creation. Where Danu softened and shaped, Bile sparked and ignited. Their union wasn't loud or violent. It was harmonious, a perfect meeting of forces that brought the first stirrings of the world into existence. From their connection came light to fill the darkness, motion to shatter the stillness, and energy to give life a place to grow. The balance they created laid the foundation for everything that would follow. But even as their work began to take shape, they knew that what they had started would need more than their touch alone. It would need beings who could take the raw potential of what they'd made and shape it into something greater. For now, though, their focus was on laying that foundation, turning the empty expanse into a place of balance and beauty. With Danu and Bile's energies working in harmony, the void began to shift. From Danu's waters came flow and fertility, and from Bile's light came form and energy. Together, They sculpted the raw essence of existence into something tangible. It was from this act of creation that the land began to take shape. Amidst the rising mountains and flowing rivers, a presence emerged, as though the land itself had come alive. This was Eriu, the spirit of Ireland. She wasn't created in the same way as the rocks and the trees. She was the land, the breath of the hills and the pulse of the rivers. Her form was striking, not because of perfection, but because of vitality. Her hair was dark and wild, like the thick forest she embodied, and her eyes gleamed with the emerald light of Ireland's rolling hills. When she moved, it was as though the wind followed her, and when she spoke, her voice was the hum of the land itself, sometimes soft and nurturing, other times sharp like a storm. Eriu's connection to the land was absolute. She wasn't merely its caretaker, she was its heart. The rivers that carved their way through the valleys carried her essence, and the mountains that rose like sentinels were her strength. Beneath her touch, the barren ground became fertile, capable of supporting life. Forests grew thick and vibrant, their roots delving deep into the soil, drinking in the nourishment of Danu's waters. The skies stretched open and clear, warmed by Bile's persistent light. But Eriu was more than just the land's spirit, she was its guardian. She didn't demand obedience, but inspired respect. Those who honored the cycles of the earth, who took only what they needed and gave back in kind, thrived under her watchful gaze. But those who sought to harm the balance, whether by greed or by recklessness, found themselves at odds with her, for she was not only kind, but also unyielding in her duty to protect. As the land flourished, it became clear that this was no ordinary place. Ireland wasn't just a part of the world. It was sacred, a place where the divine and mortal could coexist. Eriu stood at the center of it all, a constant presence in a land that was still finding its place in the larger story. For now, Ireland stood empty, its beauty unmarred and its balance intact. But it wouldn't remain that way forever. With Ireland formed and Eriu standing as its guardian, the land waited. It was fertile and alive, but it lacked caretakers, beings who could guide its growth and protect its balance. Recognizing this, Danu and Bile turned their energies toward creating a race unlike any before, the Tuatha Dé Danann. The Tuatha Dé Danann roughly translated to the folk of the goddess Danu. They weren't ordinary beings. They were essentially gods. Many of them were born from the divine essence of Danu and Bile, each one carrying a spark of their creator's power. They weren't simply made to live in the world, they were meant to shape it. They would become masters of magic, wisdom, and craft, beings of such brilliance that they would forever leave their mark on Ireland's history. The Tuatha Dé Danann were a diverse and powerful group, but among them, a few stood out for their exceptional qualities and roles. The Dagda, the great god. The Dagda was the chief deity of the Tuatha Dé Danann, embodying strength, wisdom, and abundance. His very presence radiated vitality and power, and his appearance mirrored his immense stature within their ranks. A towering figure, he was broad-shouldered and massive, with wild, untamed hair and a thick beard that seemed to catch the light of the hearth. His laughter was as hearty as his form, a sound that could fill a room and lift spirits, yet his gaze held a wisdom that few could match. The Dagda was never without his three great treasures, each of which symbolized a vital aspect of his nature. The Great Club. This weapon was both a tool of destruction and creation. One end could crush armies, while the other restored life to the fallen. It represented his dual role as a protector and a force of balance between life and death. The Cauldron of Plenty. This magical cauldron, a gift from Morrígan, never ran dry. It provided endless sustenance, ensuring that no one in his care ever went hungry. The cauldron symbolized his role as a provider and nurturer. The Harp of Seasons. This harp wasn't merely an instrument, it was a tool of power that controlled the cycles of life. By playing its strings, the Dagda could summon the seasons, bringing warmth to winter's chill or calming the heat of summer. His responsibilities extended beyond the battlefield. He was a father figure, guiding the Tuatha Dé Danann through challenges and ensuring their survival. He wasn't just their physical protector, but their spiritual leader, bridging the practical and the mystical to keep the balance within their world. The Morrígan, the Great Queen. Where the Dagda embodied creation and balance, the Morrígan was the goddess of fate, war, and sovereignty. A figure of fierce beauty and overwhelming power, the Morrigan's presence was undeniable. She was often depicted with long, raven-black hair, pale skin, and eyes that gleamed with an almost otherworldly intensity. Her aura carried the weight of destiny, making her an imposing figure even among the gods. The Morrígan was a shapeshifter, frequently taking the form of a crow or raven. These forms allowed her to observe battlefields unseen or to serve as an omen, warning those who dared challenge the Tuatha Dé Danann. Her connection to war wasn't one of destruction for its own sake. She was a goddess who fought to protect the land's sovereignty and ensure the balance of power. The Morrígan could foresee the outcomes of battles, and her warnings carried the weight of inevitability. Her words often came in riddles, forcing her audience to confront their destinies with courage. On the battlefield, she was a force of nature, rallying warriors with her cries or spreading fear among their enemies. Her presence could turn the tide of war, either ensuring victory or sealing the fate of the doomed. She wasn't just a war goddess, she was also a guardian of the land itself. The Morrigan's approval, or disapproval, determined who was worthy to rule. Despite her fearsome reputation, the Morrígan wasn't a figure of unchecked chaos. She ensured that war, fate, and power served a purpose, aligning with the greater good of the Tuatha Dé Danann and the land they protected. Her relationship with the Dagda, often portrayed as a partnership of equals, underscored her central role in the pantheon as a force of balance and strength. Lugh, the Longarm. Lugh was the embodiment of brilliance and versatility, earning his title, the Longarm, not only for his unmatched skill in combat, but also for the far-reaching scope of his talents. Youthful and radiant, Lugh was often described as tall and lithe, his golden hair gleaming like the sun. His presence was magnetic, inspiring admiration and confidence in all who followed him. Every movement he made seemed purposeful, reflecting the precision with which he approached every challenge. He was the god of all skills and mastery, excelling in arts, crafts, strategy, and warfare. A polymath whose talents spanned a wide range of disciplines. As a warrior, he was unmatched. His primary weapon was the Spear of Victory, a deadly and unerring weapon said to burn with such intensity that it had to be kept in a cauldron of water when not in use. The spear never missed its mark and symbolized his strategic mind and flawless execution in battle. Beyond his martial prowess, Lugh excelled in music, poetry, and craftsmanship. His artistry was as sharp as his spear, capable of lifting spirits and inspiring greatness. Lugh's tactical mind made him indispensable in times of war. He was a natural leader, able to see solutions to problems that others couldn't. His versatility made Lugh a cornerstone of the Tuatha Dé Danann. When they faced the Fomorians in the Second Battle of Mag Tuired, it was Lugh's cunning and skill that led to their victory. He embodied the idea that no single challenge could outmatch a sharp mind, a creative heart, and a steady hand. Nuada, the Silver Arm. Nuada, the first king of the Tuatha Dé Danann, was a god of justice, strength, and resilience. His rule set the standard for leadership among the gods, combining fairness with unwavering dedication to his people. Nuada was often depicted as a tall, regal figure with piercing eyes that seemed to measure the worth of everyone he encountered. His noble demeanor exuded authority, and he wielded the Sword of Light, a weapon that symbolized the clarity and sharpness of his judgment. Nuada's kingship wasn't without challenges. In the First Battle of Mag Tuired, which we'll go into detail in the next video, he lost his arm in combat, a grievous wound that disqualified him from the throne under the Tuatha Dé Danann's laws of sovereignty, which demanded that a king be whole. Nuada stepped down willingly, showing his deep respect for the law and his sense of fairness. However, his story didn't end there. The healer Dian, working with the smith Goibniu, crafted Nuada a silver arm, restoring his ability to fight and reclaim his role as a leader. This arm, imbued with divine craftsmanship, became a symbol of resilience and transformation, showing that even in the face of loss, renewal was possible. When Nuada returned to the throne, he ruled with a renewed sense of purpose. His sword of light was not only a weapon of war, but also a tool of justice, used to uphold fairness and order among the Tuatha Dé Danann. Nuada's legacy as a king who balanced strength with compassion and wisdom endured long after his reign. Hey everyone, just a quick intermission here. I wanted to say thank you for watching this video. It really means a lot to me. Did you know that over 80% of you who are watching right now aren't subscribed to the channel? If you've enjoyed this content so far, it would be incredible if you could hit that subscribe button. It's a small gesture, but it really helps the channel grow and ensures that you won't miss any more of our fascinating stories we explore together. Also, if you're feeling generous, please give this video a thumbs up, leave a comment, and share with anyone else who may enjoy it. Your support really does make a difference and keeps the content coming. Thanks again, and let's get back to the story. Brigid, the Exalted One. Brigid was a goddess of protection, wisdom, poetry, and smithcraft, revered for her transformative power and her ability to bridge the practical and the mystical. She was often depicted with an ethereal beauty that radiated warmth and strength, her fiery red hair a symbol of her inner flame. Her eyes sparkled with the intensity of her creative spirit, and her voice carried a soothing, lyrical quality that could calm even the most troubled souls. Brigid's influence touched every aspect of life. As a protector, Brigid was unparalleled. Her touch could mend not only physical wounds but also soothe emotional and spiritual pain, offering comfort and renewal to those in need. Yet her healing powers extended far beyond the individual. She was a protector of entire communities, ensuring their well-being and fostering unity. Brigid's presence symbolized the restoration and renewal of both people and the land, safeguarding their vitality and resilience in times of hardship. Brigid's poetic gifts were legendary. Her words carried the rhythm of life, inspiring creativity and evoking deep emotions. Poetry, to Brigid, wasn't just art. It was a way to connect with the divine, to understand and transform the world. In her role as a smith, Brigid wielded fire to forge tools and weapons. This wasn't merely an act of creation, it was an act of transformation, turning raw materials into objects of strength and beauty. Her flames symbolized her dual nature, both nurturing and fierce. They could warm and inspire or destroy and rebuild. Brigid's presence was a beacon of hope, a reminder that even in the darkest moments, the potential for renewal and growth was always present. Aengus, the Young. Aengus was the god of love, poetry, and youthful charm. He was a figure of effortless charisma, with golden hair and an infectious smile that could light up any gathering. His presence brought joy and ease, a stark contrast to the intensity of some of his fellow gods. Aengus wasn't just beautiful. He was clever, using his wit to outsmart those who underestimated him. Aengus's gifts lay in his ability to connect with others. He was a god of love, capable of softening even the hardest hearts. Aengus was known for weaving tales of romance and rekindling lost connections. His role wasn't just about passion, but about fostering deep and meaningful bonds. As a poet and musician, Aengus's words and melodies had the power to heal wounds of the heart and lift spirits. Aengus was also a trickster, known for his cunning and resourcefulness. His charm often disguised his sharp mind, and he used his wit to navigate challenges and protect his loved ones. Aengus's light-hearted demeanor didn't diminish his importance. Among the Tuatha Dé Danann, he brought balance, showing that even in times of strife, joy and love were essential forces. His presence reminded them that life wasn't just about survival, it was also about connection, laughter, and the pursuit of beauty. Manannán son of the sea. Manannán, the god of the sea and guardian of the otherworld, was a figure of immense power and mystery. His domain was vast and unpredictable, much like the ocean itself. He was often depicted as tall and commanding, with hair that shimmered like sea foam and a cloak that seemed to change colors with the tides. His eyes were deep and knowing, reflecting the endless horizons of the sea. Manannán's powers were as boundless as the waters he ruled. He controlled the waves, the currents, and the mists that obscured the land from sight. He could summon storms to protect his people, or calm the seas to aid travelers. Manannán served as a bridge between the mortal realm and the otherworld, ensuring that the boundary between these realms remained intact. His cloak of mists could conceal entire armies, and his silver chariot, drawn by magical horses, could traverse both land and sea. As a guide, Manannán ensured safe passage for those who sought his help. He was a figure of trust and wisdom, known for his ability to navigate even the most perilous paths. Manannán's responsibilities extended beyond the physical. He was a symbol of transformation and renewal, much like the tides that continually reshaped the shore. Among the Tuatha Dé Danann, he was revered as a wise and steadfast protector, his knowledge of both the mortal and mystical realms unmatched. Dian, the healer. Dian was the god of healing, a figure of precision and unparalleled expertise. Often depicted as a stern, focused figure with sharp eyes and hands that seemed to carry both the weight of knowledge and the lightness of a healer's touch, Dian was the embodiment of care and renewal. His knowledge of herbs, magic, and medicine allowed him to mend even the most grievous wounds. His work was not just about physical healing, but restoring the spiritual and emotional balance of his patients. Dian wasn't limited to traditional healing. He could create miraculous remedies like the Well of Slain, whose waters could heal any ailment. His most famous creation was the silver arm he forged for Nuada after the king lost his arm in battle. This arm restored Nuada's ability to fight. For Dian, healing was more than a skill, it was a duty. He ensured the survival and well-being of the Tuatha Dé Danann, acting as their shield against the wounds of war and the ravages of time. Dian work often went unnoticed until it was needed, but his contributions were vital to the Tuatha Dé Danann's survival and success. His hands not only healed, but ensured that those he mended could continue to fulfill their roles in the grand design of their people. Goibniu, the divine smith. Goibniu, the smith of the Tuatha Dé Danann, was the master of craftsmanship and creation, a figure whose work laid the foundation for the gods' victories and survival. Often depicted as a powerful and sturdy figure, with hands calloused from years at the forge and eyes that gleamed with the light of molten metal, Goibniu was the embodiment of skill and precision. Every creation that emerged from his forge was a testament to his unparalleled expertise. He was the creator of weapons that never failed. Swords forged by Goibniu were unbreakable and unfailingly sharp. Spears always found their mark, and shields were impenetrable. His creations were more than tools. They were extensions of the god's power. Though known for his weapons, Goibniu was equally skilled in crafting objects of art and utility. His creations, from ornate tools to intricate jewelry, reflected his eye for detail and his understanding of the balance between form and function. Goibniu also played a role in ensuring the health and vitality of the Tuatha Dé Danann. He was the keeper of a sacred brew, a divine ale that granted immortality or vitality to those who drank it. At the heart of Goibniu's role was his forge, a place of transformation where raw materials were shaped into objects of power and beauty. The gods relied on his creations not just for protection, but for inspiration, as his work embodied the ingenuity and strength of the Tuatha Dé Danann. Goibniu's skill ensured that his people were always equipped to face the challenges of war, creation, and governance. Though these were the most prominent, the Tuatha Dé Danann were a vast and varied pantheon, each member contributing to the balance and prosperity of their divine family. Together, they were a reflection of the natural and spiritual forces that Danu and Bile had set in motion. They weren't perfect, but they were extraordinary, their strengths and flaws making them both relatable and awe-inspiring. Before the Tuatha Dé Danann could claim their place in Ireland, they had to be prepared. Power alone wasn't enough. They needed mastery over magic, skill, and wisdom. For this, they turned to the four great cities: Fálius, Górius, Morrígan, and Fundius. These were no ordinary places. They existed in the otherworld, a mystical realm where time and space operated differently, and the boundaries between the mortal and the divine blurred. The otherworld and the four great cities were not created by Danu and Bile. There actually is no definitive origin for any of these places. Rather, it is believed that the otherworld existed in parallel, but separate from the world we know. Each city was a center of learning, ruled by a wise sage who guided the Tuatha Dé Danann in their development. The gods spent years, perhaps centuries, studying and honing their abilities in these cities, growing into the beings who would later shape the destiny of Ireland. Each city had its unique character and purpose, reflecting the qualities the Tuatha Dé Danann would need to lead and protect their sacred land. Fálius was the city of wisdom and spiritual knowledge, the foundation upon which all other skills were built. Here, the druid Morfessa taught the Tuatha Dé Danann the importance of understanding the natural world and its cycles. Fálius was home to the Stone of Destiny, Lugh File, a sacred artifact that cried out under the feet of the rightful king. It symbolized justice and the divine right to rule, ensuring that leadership would always align with the balance of the land. Górius was the city of strength and strategy, a place where the Tuatha Dé Danann learned the art of war and leadership. Its sage, Ezra's, guided them in the principles of discipline and foresight. From Górius came the sword of Nuada, a blade of unparalleled sharpness and power. This weapon wasn't just a tool for battle, it was a symbol of justice, a reminder that strength must always serve fairness. Morrígan was the city of abundance and nourishment, where the Tuatha Dé Danann studied the arts of healing, creation, and sustenance. Its ruler, Semias, taught them how to harness the power of renewal and ensure the prosperity of their people. From Morrígan came the cauldron of Dagda, a vessel that never ran dry and could feed all who approached it. It represented generosity and the ability to provide for others, a cornerstone of the Tuatha Dé Danann's leadership. Fundius was the city of skill and precision, where the Tuatha Dé Danann learned the finer points of craftsmanship, artistry, and mastery over tools. Its sage, Witius, instilled in them the importance of focus and excellence in all endeavors. From Fundius came the spear of Lugh, a weapon so precise it never missed its target. The spear was a symbol of victory and determination, embodying the perseverance needed to overcome any challenge. Once their training was complete, the Tuatha Dé Danann were no longer students. They had become masters of their craft, ready to step into their destiny. Leaving the four great cities was no small act. It marked a transition from preparation to action, from potential to purpose. They didn't leave lightly, nor did they forget the lessons and treasures they had gained. The Tuatha Dé Danann left the otherworld and the four great cities behind, carrying with them the wisdom, power, and treasures they had acquired. Their journey wasn't just a physical crossing, it was an act of transformation, a step into a world where their presence would change everything. When they arrived in Ireland, it wasn't in the way one might expect. They didn't come on ordinary ships or through mortal paths. They arrived shrouded in mist and mystery, a radiant and otherworldly force stepping into the land that had been waiting for them. It is said that the Tuatha Dé Danann descended upon Ireland in a great cloud, their arrival marked by a strange and magical mist that spread across the land. This wasn't a natural weather event. It was a symbol of their power and their connection to the otherworld. Their entry was not quiet. The very land seemed to stir at their presence. Rivers flowed more swiftly, the forests whispered with an almost sentient awareness, and the hills themselves seemed to swell with life. The Tuatha Dé Danann didn't merely arrive in Ireland, they awakened it. Ireland, though beautiful and fertile, was not an empty paradise. It turns out that this land had many inhabitants before them. The Firbolg, the current inhabitants, had claimed the land long before the Tuatha Dé Danann's arrival. The Firbolg were no ordinary mortals. They were strong and proud, a people who had cultivated the land and established their own kingdoms. To them, the arrival of the Tuatha Dé Danann was not a blessing, but a threat. The Tuatha Dé Danann, however, saw themselves as destined for Ireland. This was not arrogance, but a deep sense of purpose. They believed that their mastery of magic and their connection to the divine made them the rightful rulers of the land. Still, they knew that claiming it wouldn't be simple. The Tuatha Dé Danann didn't come to Ireland as conquerors in the traditional sense. They didn't march in with armies or lay waste to the land. Instead, their power radiated from their very presence. Their arrival was transformative. It brought light to the shadowed corners and vitality to places long untouched. But this power wasn't welcomed by all. To the Firbolg, the Tuatha Dé Danann were invaders, beings who threatened to disrupt the life they had worked so hard to maintain. The Tuatha Dé Danann, too, recognized the tension. They knew that their claim to Ireland would have to be proven, not through mere words but through action. A confrontation with the Firbolg was inevitable, and it would test everything they had learned in the 4 great cities. The arrival of the Tuatha Dé Danann was only the beginning of their story. Their presence would set into motion a series of events that would reshape Ireland's history. In the next video, we'll explore the 4 groups of inhabitants who came before the Tuatha Dé Danann, which was described in the Leber Gabála Érenn, or Book of Invasions. Then we'll delve into the first battle of Mag Tuired, where the Tuatha Dé Danann faced the Firbolg in a decisive conflict. But their challenges didn't end there. The shadow of the Fomorians, beings of chaos and destruction, loomed large. In the second battle of Mag Tuired, the Tuatha Dé Danann would face their greatest foes yet, fighting not just for dominance, but for survival itself. Finally, we'll see how the arrival of the Milesians, the mortal ancestors of the Irish people, led to the Tuatha Dé Danann's retreat into the otherworld, where they became eternal guardians of the land. This is a story of creation, conflict, and evolution, where gods walked among mortals, and the land itself seemed to be shining with purpose. Stay tuned for the next part of the journey, where the trials and triumphs of the Tuatha Dé Danann truly begin.